There are great wide receiver prospects. There are elite wide receiver prospects. And then there are the names that force people to ask a dangerous question. What if this is one of the greatest wide receiver prospects we have ever seen? That is where Jeremiah Smith's story is heading. Not because of hype alone. Hype is cheap. Every recruiting cycle has 5 stars. Every offseason has comparisons. Every fan base believes its young star is different. But Jeremiah Smith has done the part that makes hype matter. He matched it. Then he raised it. He entered college football as the #1 overall recruit in the country. Not just the #1 wide receiver, the #1 player. A wide receiver carrying a level of expectation usually reserved for quarterbacks and edge rushers. Then he arrived at Ohio State, stepped into one of the most talented wide receiver factories in America, and somehow made the expectation look too small. Freshman records, national championship moments, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, unanimous All-American status, historic production, 3 drops on 166 catchable targets. And now, entering 2026, the conversation is bigger than wide receiver 1. It is bigger than top 5 pick. It is bigger than best player in the 2027 National Football League draft. The question is dramatic, but the resume has earned it. Is Jeremiah Smith becoming the greatest wide receiver prospect ever? That is not a normal question, because the history at the position is not light. Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, A.J. Green, Larry Fitzgerald, Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison Jr., names that changed how teams viewed the ceiling of a true #1 receiver. So for Jeremiah Smith to even enter that conversation, he cannot just be good, he has to be rare, and through 2 college seasons, he has been. The story began in South Florida, where Smith became one of the most dominant high school receivers in the country at Chaminade Madonna. As a senior, he caught 88 passes for 1,376 yards and 19 touchdowns. In his final 2 high school seasons, he caught 151 passes for 2,474 yards and 39 touchdowns. He was not just productive, he was overwhelming. At 6'3" with track athleticism, size, speed, body control, and physicality, Smith looked like the prototype before he ever played a college snap. He was the kind of recruit that made people talk in extremes, the best receiver in the class, the #1 overall player, one of the highest-rated wide receiver recruits of the modern era, the next great Ohio State wide receiver. And that last part matters, because Ohio State is not a place where receivers get praised for potential alone. That room has produced Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., first-round players, national names, real National Football League production. So when Jeremiah Smith arrived in Columbus, he was not walking into a program desperate for a receiver savior. He was walking into a standard, and somehow he raised it as a freshman. In 2024, Smith played 16 games and started 15. He caught 76 passes for 1,315 yards and 15 receiving touchdowns. He added a rushing touchdown. He caught a pass in every game. He scored a receiving touchdown in each of his first 7 college games, and he did all of it as a true freshman. That matters because freshman wide receivers are not supposed to look that complete. They are supposed to flash. They are supposed to struggle with physical coverage. They are supposed to disappear in big games. They are supposed to need time. Smith did not play like he needed permission. He broke Ohio State freshman records held by Chris Carter. He became the first Ohio State freshman with more than 1,000 receiving yards in a season. He helped Ohio State win a national championship, and in the playoff, he did not shrink. Against Tennessee, he caught 6 passes for 103 yards and 2 touchdowns. Against Oregon in the Rose Bowl, he caught 7 passes for 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then, in the national championship game against Notre Dame, when Ohio State needed one more dagger, he delivered the kind of catch that becomes part of a player's legend. 3rd and long, pressure moment, game on the line, Jeremiah Smith downfield. That is how a freshman becomes more than a freshman. A lot of players get hyped before they arrive. Very few players make the hype feel conservative. That is what Smith did. Then came 2025, and the question changed again, because the hardest part after a dominant freshman season is not proving you can surprise people. It is proving you can dominate when there is no surprise left. Defenses knew who he was. Coaches built coverages around him. Every scouting report started with him, and Smith still produced. In 2025, he caught 87 passes for 1,243 yards and 12 receiving touchdowns. He became a unanimous All-American. He won Big Ten Receiver of the Year again. He finished with one of the best two-year starts any Big Ten receiver has ever had. Through 2 seasons, the numbers are almost ridiculous. 163 catches, 2,558 receiving yards, 27 receiving touchdowns, a 15.7 yards per catch average, 2 rushing touchdowns, multiple 1,000-yard seasons before his draft-eligible year, and the efficiency behind the numbers is even more frightening. Only 3 drops on 166 catchable targets over 2 seasons. That is the kind of stat that tells you the hands are not just good, they are elite. Because the best receivers are not just highlight machines, they are trust machines. Quarterbacks throw to them because the window can be small and the outcome can still be safe. That is Jeremiah Smith. He wins above the rim. He tracks the deep ball. He catches through contact. He turns 50-50 throws into advantage throws. He runs after the catch with power. He can line up as the alpha, see the coverage tilt toward him, and still find ways to create explosive plays. Real quick, if you're loving this deep dive, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss another player journey. The scouting profile is why the all-time conversation has started. Smith is not a small receiver winning only with quickness. He is not a big receiver winning only with size. He is a full-field problem. At 6'3" and 223 pounds, he has the frame teams want from a true X receiver. He has the speed to threaten vertically. He has the acceleration to separate. He has the body control to adjust when the ball is not perfect. He has the hands to finish through traffic. He has the physicality to fight through contact. And after the catch, he runs like someone who does not believe the play is over just because the ball arrived. That combination is why the comparisons get so loud. Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, Randy Moss. Those are dangerous names to say too often. But when analysts reach for those comparisons, they are not saying Smith has already become those players. They are saying the physical profile belongs in that rare neighborhood. And that is the difference. The National Football League draft does not evaluate what a player has already become in the league. It evaluates what the player can become. Smith's college resume already says elite. His traits say something even bigger. That is why some evaluators are not just calling him wide receiver 1. They are calling him the best player in the class, even over quarterbacks, even over edge rushers, even in a class with Arch Manning, Dante Moore, Colin Simmons, Dylan Stewart, Cam Coleman, and other future first-round names. That is how rare the conversation is. Because wide receiver is not usually the position that takes over the very top of a draft board. Quarterbacks matter more. Edge rushers carry premium value. Offensive tackles protect the investment. Cornerbacks erase matchups. For a receiver to be viewed as the best overall player, he has to transcend the positional argument. He has to look like the kind of weapon who changes the geometry of the field. The kind of target who makes a young quarterback better. The kind of player defensive coordinators build the whole week around. That is the Jeremiah Smith case. But if we are going to ask the greatest wide receiver prospect question, the standard has to be high, really high. Smith is not only competing against the 2027 class, he is competing against history. Calvin Johnson was a physical marvel. Julio Jones was a rare size, speed, power prototype. Jamar Chase had one of the greatest receiving seasons college football has ever seen. Marvin Harrison Jr. looked like the cleanest modern receiver prospect in years. Those names are not easy to pass. That is why 2026 matters. Smith has already proven he is special. Now he has to prove the story can stay this loud when everyone is trying to slow it down. He has to stay healthy. He has to keep dominating as the obvious focal point. He has to lead Ohio State through another championship-level season. He has to win against the best corners on the schedule. He has to turn double coverage into background noise. He has to keep improving the smaller parts of the position, including blocking, route detail, and leadership. Because when people call a prospect generational, they are not just talking about highlights. They are talking about completeness. the ability to win every type of route, the ability to dominate every type of coverage, the ability to finish every type of catch, the ability to affect games, even when the defense is built to take you away. That is what makes Smith different. The hype should have been heavy. Instead, he made it look reasonable. As a recruit, he was supposed to be the next great receiver. As a freshman, he became a national champion and record breaker. As a sophomore, he became the alpha everyone prepared for and still could not stop. Now, as a junior, he enters the season with a chance to turn a prospect conversation into a historical one. Wide receiver 1 feels almost too small. Best player in the class feels more accurate. Greatest wide receiver prospect ever is the dramatic question. And the wild part is this. It does not feel ridiculous. Not anymore. Not after the freshman records. Not after the playoff moments. Not after the sophomore encore. Not after the hands, the size, the speed, the ball skills, the production, and the way the sport keeps trying to find the right comparison. That is the power of Jeremiah Smith's story. He is not chasing attention. He already has that. He is chasing history. And if 2026 becomes another dominant season, the 2027 National Football League draft may not just be asking where Jeremiah Smith gets picked. It may be asking whether we just watched one of the greatest receiver prospects college football has ever produced. Is Jeremiah Smith becoming the greatest wide receiver prospect ever? That is the question now, and he is the reason it has to be asked. That's the story in Football Realm. If you love deep player journeys, hit subscribe and join the realm. Drop your thoughts below. Who do you want profiled next?